three.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and however else you choose to identify yourselves. We cast no dispersions. If you can see my face or hear my voice, you know it can mean only one thing. That's right. It is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports podcasting. That's right. I am Mike, and it is time once again for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I am joined, as I am pretty much every week, by my partner in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it?
Going pretty good. Just trying to. It's kind of a dead weekend football wise for me, with Gunners going out of the FA Cup, and we all expected it. And round 4 wasn't the most eventful. So at least from a world football standpoint, I was like, but I enjoyed my American football this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. I'm celebrating. My beloved Eagles are in the Super Bowl. Third time in the last almost 20 years. I think it's closer to 17. Or no, 19. But third time in 19 years, we are going back to the Super Bowl. Well, let's kick the show off with the discussion of American football, because I'm not going to lie. I was intrigued by that NFC Championship game, but I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he told me it was like one of the most boring things that he had ever watched. And I had to take a step back and think about, you know what? After about midway through the second quarter, when the 49ers scored again, after that Christian McCaffrey run, which is one of the all-time great runs that you're going to see, that game got boring really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to wonder. Not wonder. I use the term snake bitten a lot, but San Francisco's luck with quarterbacks this year was just god awful. I mean, god awful. Even considering the fact that they seem to have found a diamond in the rough with Brock Purdy, but to lose your first and second string, and then you got lucky that the kid worked out, and now you're sitting in the NFC Championship game, and then he tears his UCL. He may not even start the season next year. And you go to the journeyman of journeyman quarterbacks in Josh Johnson, who is playing for his 13th club, and he gets knocked out with a concussion. It was like, okay. I mean, that was basically it. So, yeah, and then you also saw from the Eagles standpoint, too, there was no incentive to do anything beyond just keep the ball. There's like, why bother? We should just run the ball and get some first downs. The defense, the offense, the San Francisco offense couldn't do anything. So there's just no urgency. And the whole time I keep checking my watch going, okay, can we get to the AFC Championship game yet? Because this is over. Now, I imagine from a Philly fan standpoint, when you saw Brock Purdy go down with an Arnold Herb, you had to be like, whoop, we're good. Get the party started. I'm sending out my invitations. I'm getting my barbecue list together. We are having a party. Let's go.
I was watching with a group of Eagles fans, and when he went out initially, we figured, okay, he'll be back. He'll take a couple of plays back. Mm-hmm. And that was in the first quarter. And then the first quarter turned into the second, and he still wasn't back. And we're starting to talk to each other like, why is he back? Mm-hmm. And finally,
thing he had in his arm, man.
Yeah. And we're like, nah, they'll get him back. There's no way he's not coming back in. And as it got later and later in the second, we're like, if he was going to come back, he would have done it by now. There's actually something there. Mm-hmm. Now, ask me why they decided to try and block Hassan Reddick, who had like 14 sacks and was an all-pro this year with a backup tight end. I think that's just pure piss poor planning on San Francisco's part.
On him was ridiculous.
Yeah. Like how you didn't account for him better then say, okay, we're going to try and put a backup tight end and a wide receiver on him. Like, all this guy has been is a heat-seeking missile directed completely towards the quarterback of the other team. The quarterback must go down, and the quarterback must go down hard. But as it went on, something's going on here. And then, the second half, Josh Johnson goes down. I didn't realize it at first. I saw it on the replay today, actually, as I was watching the replay of the game. He actually does get kind of up, and he's a little bit wobbly when it gets to his feet. And you could tell then something was wrong, but I also had the benefit of hindsight. And you see him getting Christian McCaffrey, and at that point in time, one of the guys remarked, Kyle Juszczyk is actually their backup quarterback. Or their emergency quarterback, and we're all looking at each other like, you have got to be flipping kidding me.
He was reading the playbook on the sideline.
Yeah, if this wasn't over now, it's completely over. And it was just a matter of, could we keep the ball long enough and maybe score one or two more times to put that completely to bed, which they did. And so the Eagles are the first team in however many years to go through and win each of their playoff games by 20 plus points. So you're right. They didn't do anything because they didn't need to.
They didn't need to. And I think the smart money, though, even had Purdy stayed healthy, the smart money was on the Eagles anyway, simply because you saw when they got Jalen Hurts back, they were able to get to their comfort zone again. And they just, the Giants game was, I think it was more of, this is how good the Eagles are, because let's not forget, the Giants played Minnesota very well in the regular season and went into that game thinking they could win. They're like, we can beat this Minnesota team. And they did. And they beat them pretty well. So I was pretty confident in the Giants' ability to compete in that game, and they just didn't. And I think it's just because they just couldn't, because the Eagles are just that much better. So I think with that being said, even had San Francisco not had the unfortunate incident they did to knock their quarterback out, I still think eventually the Eagles would have settled in and just said, okay, this offense can't move on us. We have Jalen Hurts. Let's just let him get into the groove of the game, because he's more dangerous in the third and fourth quarter anyway. So it just made sense to me that was happening. It was just sad that from a fan perspective, we couldn't watch a good football game.
And this goes for any sport. Your biggest blind spot is the team that you root hardest for. Because whenever you root for a team, all you ever see are their flaws.
Yeah, that's right. And I root for a team that's got a lot of them.
I'm sure every Arsenal game you watch, even when they're getting ready to cruise, you're on the edge of your seat until it's like 3-4 to nothing, because you always feel like, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a fan of a team, until it's like completely in the bag, my biggest blind spots are the teams that I root for, because I can't see their positives. All I ever see are their flaws. And as much as you say, okay, the Eagles dominated the Giants, there was no way they would have beaten the 49ers. Eventually, that defensive front is really, really good. They can put pressure on the ball. And, the Eagles' one real loss with Jalen Hurts was to the Commanders, and they could run the ball. And Brian Johnson and Antonio Gibson aren't nearly as good as Christian McCaffrey is. And you got to account for Deebo Samuels. And Brandon Ayuk is a touchdown anytime waiting to happen. And how are you going to account for Nick Bosa? Because I know Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox are good, but neither one of them are Nick Bosa. and Fred Warner, we don't have a linebacker like him. And, I know that they have like the last rated pass defense on big passing plays, but how are you going to keep the quarterback upright? Right. Jalen Hurts has still got a batch. If you would ask me, if you'd have asked me and then handicapped the game, you'd have had the 49ers as 14-point favorites. And there's nobody who's ever going to question whether or not I'm a diehard Eagles fan, but you would have had the 49ers favorite. I'd have convinced you to bet against my team because as much as I know their successes, what I know more than anything else are their flaws.
Yeah. But you all have probably the scariest offensive lineman I've ever seen in Jordan Mailata.
Oh,
that is the biggest man in the world.
I mean, he
6'8", 365, and his shoulders are wider than his stomach by a significant margin. That guy is an absolute monster. And he was on the bench for a lot of the game. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm sorry.
He was out there when he needed to be.
Needed to be. I think he's nursing an injury, but I mean, that guy is a monster. He's so big. I mean, when rugby says you're too big.
Yeah. When the rugby league said to him, you're too big.
You're too big for rugby union. You can't play 15s, not 7s. You can't play 15s.
No, it wasn't even that. He didn't even try to play 15s. He tried to play league. He tried to play
tried to play league?
What is it? 13s.
Yeah, 13s. Okay. 13s. So he tried to play league, yeah.
Yeah, and
dude.
He originally tried to play 13s. They said you're too big.
Yeah.
Your size and your doesn't lend itself to that.
Yeah.
He tried to play 15s. They're like, nah, that's not going to work. Try out for American football.
Try American football. Yeah. And American football looked at him and they were like, thank you. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. A guy with your speed and your size will figure it out. And that was
I'm thankful that. Yeah, and the Eagles were like, we will hope that we can keep you, because the other thing people forget, they kept that man on the practice squad for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Which means anybody around
could have
come and poached him.
And
the Eagles managed to keep him stashed on that practice squad, and everybody knew how big he was.
Right.
They just wanted to put the time in to teach him. The Eagles did. Sure enough, now you got a Pro Bowl tackle after a second full year playing.
Right. Who's 25? He's 25. That's it.
But also does not have the mileage on his body.
He doesn't. No.
That a lot, because he has never played a down of organized American football outside of the NFL.
Right. Wow.
I mean,
that's bonkers.
I would like you to think about this statement. That man has
bonkers.
never played a down of organized American football outside of having played in the NFL, and he's a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. But the fact that anybody could have poached him and didn't. But I mean, you talk about Samoan dominance of American football. When you can come in from Australia, you're Samoan. And as you said, you've never played a down of organized football until you play in the most competitive football league in the world. And you're a Pro Bowler and you're 25. You're 25. Like,
and he's not blocking easy people to block. Like,
no.
He's got some serious assignments.
Absolutely.
People who he has to stop.
But wait till he's 28. You're looking at Jonathan Ogden. You know?
If he stays healthy, if he has the career trajectory that would, yes, he could be easily a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And, on top of that, Lane Johnson, Pro Bowler,
and the best center. I think the best center of the past 20 years. I mean,
and the funny thing is, if you look at the Eagles' trajectory, they have gone from strength to strength to strength at center. I mean, that is the one place over the course of the last 20, 25 years that they have just absolutely nailed.
Yeah.
When you get it, and you get to Jason Kelce, who is First ballot Hall of Famer, no
Oh,
doubt.
absolutely. He's the best center of the last 10 years. I don't think
20,
anybody can argue with that. Yeah.
I don't know how many people are better at their job of
Yeah.
doing what he does.
And no one's more athletic at that position. The way he gets down the field and blocks. I mean, he played fullback.
He's small. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
small.
he played fullback. He's like 290, which is kind of funny saying he's small, but he is. He's a smaller offensive lineman, but his technique and his speed. I mean, he's it's kind of like the way they said about Aaron Donald playing defensive tackle at 280, and he's dominating that position because of his athleticism. You could say the same thing about Jason Kelce and the way he dominates at center because of his mind, but also the way he can get out. You don't pull centers to block. They don't pull. He's pulling to the left and to the right, but you've seen him leading runs 30, 40 yards down the field, and he's blocking safeties, and he's step for step. I mean, the guy is just an absolute athletic freak.
And you have to understand, he's also probably put on about 30 pounds to play the position.
Absolutely.
Because I believe when he was a rookie, he was about 265.
Right.
And so really undersized. But they went from like Hank Fraley to Jeremiah Johnson to
right.
Jason Kelce, and you can't complain.
I bet he's glad he didn't retire last year. I bet he's glad he didn't.
Yeah, one more Super Bowl.
Yeah, man.
So, hey, anything that happens now is just bonus.
Yeah, it's gravy. Oh man,
yeah,
it's so hard. It's so hard.
I know, brother. I know.
Oh man,
I feel for you.
It's so hard. But
anytime you want to jump on the bandwagon.
Hey, if my wife was from Philly, that might have happened by now. But luckily for her, she's from New York. So
anytime you want to jump on the bandwagon, I will throw a couple of people overboard.
Yeah. Well, I am pulling. I mean, look, but I don't know why I know a lot of people don't do this, but I'm if my team isn't in, I pull for NFC East teams in the playoffs. So, I was actually hoping for a Cowboys-Eagles NFC Championship game. So yeah, if whichever team from the division is in, that's the team I pull for. So yes, Redskins fans, Commanders fans, I will pull for the Cowboys in the playoffs if they're not playing against an NFC East team. I will. So
you're way more magnanimous than I
am. That's what you have to do. See, you don't know what it's like to sit there and go, since you've been watching football, your team has won 2 playoff games. 2. 2 playoff games since you've been watching football since 1991. I'm sorry, no, 3. I forgot. You won 3.
I was 38 before the first time that the city that I love and all 4 of their sports teams won a championship in my memory.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like to go through a drought.
Yeah.
But I still
but at least you were competitive. Say what you want about the McNabb years. You got to 5 straight NFC Championship games. You were at least competitive.
We were competitive then, and I had a couple of Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
The Phils didn't go to another World Series between 83 and 2000 or the 92 World Series. I almost forgot about that one, but that was, who saw that coming?
Right.
2001, when the Sixers went, it was great having them there, but a couple of times when the Flyers went, they ran into the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And absolutely. Yeah. The 76ers ran into the pinnacle Shaq and Kobe Lakers.
Yeah. Well, the Caps played that same Red Wings team and got swept in 99, I think.
I think the first time that we went, we got swept. The second time, I can't even remember who we played in. I want to say 07 when they came back from 3-0 to beat the Bruins. The Flyers did, and went to Stanley Cup, but they ended up losing. They won 2 games, but that was it.
Yeah.
I think it was the Blackhawks. And you just, every time we would get to a title game, we'd run into the best team out there.
Right.
And that was the end of it.
Well, hopefully the misery can end, at least from the ownership standpoint, and we get some and they just sell that squad and then implode that stadium, just implode it, build some condos there and pretend like it never existed because there's nothing to hold on to there.
There's nothing but
there.
Bad
just
memories.
Get rid of it. Just get rid of it and pretend like it was never there. I'm sorry. Build a statue of Sean Taylor there and then move on. It's just so depressing. So, we're all hoping that at least a sale will happen and then they can just start over. And the first decision they need to make is to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new team name because Commanders is the dumbest thing you could have said. And that's the one they picked. That just lets you know who's running that team. That was the lowest ranked choice out of all the choices, and that's the one they picked. Okay,
and
guys.
It only took them 2 years to come up.
Of course. And all is the best thing I ever wore around here is my football team sweatshirt. That's what gets the most props from people. They should have just stuck with football team. This is better than
I always said they should have been. What I had two solutions. Number one, don't change the name, change the logo, make it a potato.
That's pretty fitting.
Or number two, stick with the Washington football team whole thing, but change it to the Washington team of football. That way, when they put the 3-letter abbreviation up on the screen, it says WTF.
Which is often the sentiment that the fans have when they're watching the games anyway. So it would have fit pretty well. Pretty well. But at least we got a Pro Bowler out of our special teamer. So we got an all-pro there.
Hey, Trust Way, once again. All right, you know what? We actually need to talk world football at some point.
I should probably I'm gonna edit this video to put a timestamp at 22 minutes. So we can start. You want to hear about me and Mike talk about a little football? I'll talk about Philly Eagles, okay? But then timestamp 22 minutes, jump right in. We'll start talking about
Syria
and the wide and wonderful world of Juventus.
Drop points this weekend at Monza. Weston McKennie rejoining Tyler Adams at Leeds.
Yes, USMNT FC is the new name of the club.
Yes. Jesse Marsh, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie. It's a loan deal with a Brendan Aronson. It's a loan deal with a £36 million pound option to buy. So the clear out is beginning. That loss takes them down to 13th place in Serie A. Now, instead, if you look at the Serie A standings, it makes for a little bit of intriguing reading because we've talked about leagues breaking down into like mini competitions. You have Napoli up by 13 points right now. But then there are only 3 points in between Inter in second and Roma in 6. Then you got another 9 points from Roma in 6 down to 7th place Udinese. But Udinese only has 9 points on 16th place Sassuolo. If you want to give them another 2 and say Udinese has 11 on 17th place Spezia, and then you've got the relegation candidates who are pretty much nailed on.
Yeah, that's looks like that's pretty much etched in stone there. Yeah,
Sampdoria and Cremonese still in the single digits. Verona on 13th, 13. But it's like, okay, Champions League, jockeying for mid-table positions and relegation. It's like everything's settled. And Napoli. I know, and I know look, Juventus on 23 points is not going to get overtaken by Verona on 13.
No.
Not in the last 18 games. I'm sorry. I even as bad as Juventus plays, I just think they have a little more than that. But they're kind of caught in that mid-table thing right now. And wouldn't it be awkward to look up the table, which is extremely possible, come late March, early April, and see like Juventus in 15th place?
It's entirely possible, especially considering that the reports are now coming about that Allegri may not make it out the season, which is ridiculous. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. And yes, the team wasn't playing that great prior to the new year, but they were improving and they were climbing the table a little bit prior to the point deduction, of course. And to put, how can a team be expected to win with this going on behind the scenes? I mean, yeah, you're getting Pogba back. I get it. Pogba's coming back, so that'll be, he's coming off of his injury. Pogba's probably going, okay, I've made two really bad decisions in the past for my last two transfers by going back to Manchester United and now coming to Juventus. And now it looks like Pogba's going to be probably, I could see him on PSG next year. Pretty easily.
I don't know. I mean, he before he gets on PSG next year and he aggravates for another transfer, something he's going to have to do is prove that he can stay healthy for more than 3 games.
Well, yeah, which is the reason why I could see a team like PSG just taking him because they can. And just to go, yeah, come on, come join the party. But I don't see any other big club really taking a flyer on him, considering his drop in form and where he saves himself before is with his international play. Well, he hasn't been able to do that because of injury. So I don't know what it's going to happen.
Even PSG tangentially has to balance their books.
Yeah, but Juventus is going to dump him. They're not going to be able to pay him.
They're not going to be able to. It depends, though. Like, they're going to demand a transfer fee. If I'm PSG, I'm not paying for him because the wages and the transfer fee are still going to be a problem. And, even PSG has to account for their revenues. So if you're going to pay that against your financial fair play, I can get Paul Pogba, who I don't know what he's going to be. And even if he costs, let's say that Juventus decides they're willing to let him go for like 40 million euros, right? With a $10 million a year contract over 4 years, he's going to cost you about 20 euros worth of player each year. Now, do I want to spend that? I mean, there's no telling. If I'm PSG, maybe I'm taking him on a loan with an option to buy, because you're going to have to offset some of that for me to take him, because even PSG, to a certain extent, needs to balance their books. They don't own their own stadium. There's but so much revenue that they can glean out of sponsorship deals and the fact that they're owned by the Emirates.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm not bringing that up as a matter of talking about the semantics of the financial structures of the leagues. It's more of a situation of just what is Juventus going to do with their players? What are they going to do? And because also that like if you're talking about firing the coach, which would be ridiculous, then you're talking about offloading players. As you said, the fire sale has begun. So,
but this is a problem that they have, that a lot of teams in similar positions has, that they put themselves in.
Oh yeah,
you have
a lot. It's not their fault.
Yeah, but you have a lot of underperforming players on very, very high wages. And in order to get rid of a player in that sort of situation, you have to have a team that is willing to, at a minimum.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I don't think that there's a lot of people left on that team that a lot of teams are willing to say, like, okay, I'm going to take this, and I am willing to, besides paying you a transfer fee, I'm willing to pay these wages for this player. And you have these guys on these bloated contracts who are the ones that they actually need to get rid of, like Pogba. But to balance the books, not only do they need to get rid of Pogba and his wages, they need to get something back for him. And I just don't see where that's happening with players like him, right? With like Artur Melo, who also is in the same situation. They got rid of
I believe he's also coming back too from injury.
Yeah, but Artur Melo, like, tried to loan him out and it didn't work. right? They got rid of Weston McKennie because Leeds was willing to say, hey, we're willing to pay probably most of his wages, give you a certain amount of something as a loan fee, and a structured buy-in clause that says 36 million pounds. My guess is that's not coming anywhere near one lump sum payment, but we know for at least financial fair play that they can declare that 36 million the minute that they get it and sort of say that they can balance their books on that. These are the deals that they've got to make right now, and it's a devil's bargain. They are in bad shape. And the reason why we continue to talk about it is I believe this is going to be one of the more fascinating stories that we can track over the remainder of the season.
I'm curious to see how far the stock falls. I mean, the value of the stock has already dropped 19%. Which is massive. That's massive, 19%. So I'm interested to see just from an investor perspective, because look, when you're a publicly traded company that it's also a team, it's you have this kind of two-way street of tracking your income, because there's also, you have to do something to please your investors. So
when you invest in a team, they always tell you results are not guaranteed.
Oh yeah, well, when you invest in anything, results are not guaranteed. But as an investor, you still are looking for returns on your investment, because if you don't get them, what are you going to do with that investment?
I'm gonna sell it because I
You're
don't feel like it's worth
exactly. And you'll just go, look, so if you have a fire sale if you have a huge sale of stock from investors because it's down 19% and they fear it's going to drop even more, that is going to affect heavily Juventus's bottom line.
But it's not like stock in Apple, where it's going to negatively affect their bottom line in that part. It's the Agnelli family still controls the bulk of the board and the voting, right? They own enough of the team where they control everything about it. The stock price of that team is there because it is, number one, because it has to be. And number two, because it gives them an evaluation that they can say this team right now is worth this,
is worth X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I understand that.
But if I'm a investor in Juventus, short of them going down to Serie B, I might sell my stock, but it's not like that team, if their stock bottoms out, if their stock goes from 20 to 5, it's not going to bankrupt the team. It's going to look really bad.
I wasn't saying that either. I wasn't saying that.
Yeah, but if when Sears went from 40 to 5, that was a massive problem. So the point I'm trying to make is it's not your average publicly traded company,
right?
Because of how they're backed.
But Sears also didn't have an owner that controlled the vast majority of, not the vast, but that controlled the team in the same way that this is. But I don't think anybody, no matter what the type of company it isn't going to be too pleased about a 19% drop in your stock, no matter what it is. That's not going to be too pleasing.
Okay. We can agree on that part.
Yeah, let's agree on that. Let's bring on those.
Let's bring on those. Hola, Los.
Good day, gentlemen. It's pretty nice 82 degrees today here in Tampa, Florida. So just saying.
We got to 57 today.
Did you? I got somewhere in here is my gato. This is there you
there
are.
He is.
Okay.
There
she is. Say hi. Go to the camera.
For those of you who are wondering, Los has a background up that's a palm tree blowing in the breeze and some nice lapping waves on the beach as he sits resplendent in his Real Madrid jersey.
Before I talk about Madrid, you guys are talking about Juve, so let me talk about that for just a little bit, because Tottenham Hotspur have some ties to Juventus. Our general manager Paratisi is looking at a 2.5-year ban because of his dealings with Juve, and there's some talk of a 30-day suspension for a couple of our players. I don't think that's going to happen, but there was talk of Dejan Kulusevski and Rodrigo Bentancur, both who played for Juve and transferred to Spurs last January window, about a year ago, to Spurs, and have been great additions. But apparently when they were at Juve, they were told, as well as a few other players, they weren't going to pay player wages. They were going to have the players take a sabbatical, keep playing, but we aren't going to pay you. And then wink, wink, nod, nod, they went ahead and gave several players some payment under the table. Because they're a publicly traded company, they couldn't disclose that that's what they were doing. They had to publicly say, hey, nobody's making anything. Well, that didn't sit well with the players, obviously. And a couple of them, including Kulusevski and Bentancur, were paid under the table. So now the question is, does that meet some sort of punishment in terms of football? And maybe if they were still playing in Serie A, perhaps. But I'm thinking playing in the English Premier League, England could give two flying flips about what happens over in Italy. And I don't think they're going to uphold any sort of suspension for the players themselves. For the general manager, Paratisi, he's out of luck because that's a UEFA ban. That's a ban for all UEFA leagues and all UEFA teams. So he would have to go elsewhere to become for the next couple of years and see how well he could mess up someone else's system, I guess.
MLS.
As a general manager, who I don't know. We'll see.
There are a lot of teams that might think about it. Maybe not MLS.
They'll take a flyer. Definitely take a flyer.
Yeah, they'll definitely take one.
I don't want my cat's disappearing. That doesn't make sense to me. She's not green screen. She's not green screen.
She's not green. That's
exactly. Tortoiseshell. I don't get it.
It's a very awkward thing as El Gato goes in and out of the picture.
It's like an 80s video, like Max Headroom style or something.
Go catch the wave.
Well, the serene beach scene behind you, Los, sort of belies the situation that's actually going on at Madrid right now, where
they can't seem to buy a win.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to call it is a little bit of a struggle for them right now. Yeah. A draw this weekend. A
game they should have won. They should have won. I mean, you look at this, they had 2/3 possession. They had almost twice as many shots on goal. I will say this, watching most of the game, I only got into the second half. They were looking very, very dull, very lackluster. A couple great chances. Vinicius Jr. had one point blank, should have scored, didn't score. Normally he scores that type of goal. But the biggest thing for me, the difference was when Luka Modric came on with like 15 minutes left, and he actually was a catalyst of sorts. He was playing rather well, and it seemed like every other play he was involved in. And I'm like, okay, so Ancelotti felt that he didn't need to start Modric, or perhaps maybe he was resting him. I mean, Modric isn't spring chicken, he's like, what, 35, 37, something. He's up there, okay? He's old. Yeah, it just was a different game when they put him in to navigate the midfield. So I don't know if that's the solution, but it sure did help matters, except that we couldn't put anything in the net. So there you go. And now Barca is moving away. So I think like a 5-point lead, I think it is. So
yeah, it's at the beginning of last season, Stenlos, we talked about, a possibly understrength Real Madrid side. They're a little bit on the older side. They hadn't gone out and splashed the cash. There weren't a lot of up and coming players coming into the team. They went out and won the treble. They, they took the La Liga. They won the Champions League. It took a heroic continual comeback effort, but it just felt like last season, everything that Carlo Ancelotti touched turned gold. Should this sort of lapse in form, downturn, regression, whatever you want to call it, that we're seeing them play with right now, should we really be surprised about it? Because all that we've got is a team now that's a year older. You can't expect Karim Benzema to play every single year at a player of the year type level, to have the season that he did last year with the goals that he scored when he scored them. Eventually we've known Luka Modric and Toni Kroos, their legs are going to give out, right? There is a need to develop Tchouaméni, Camavinga. They don't have many outside scoring options other than Karim Benzema. Rodrigo is what Rodrigo is. Is he a supremely talented young player? Yeah. Is he a reliable goal scorer right now? No. So should we really be surprised at what we're seeing? Or is this kind of them regressing back to where we thought they were after kind of a miraculous season? So, Steph, what do you think? And then I'll get Los in on this.
I think it's more of the second thing you said, because I know we talked a lot last year about how this was a surprising season from Real Madrid for all the trophies that they won, and it looked on paper like this should be one of the best Real Madrid teams ever, and it just seemed like that wasn't still the case. So it seems like, maybe they were punching above their weight a bit last year, and were able to put together a remarkable season for two players that were not just on the wrong side of 30, but significantly on the wrong side of 30, and have a young player who really learned how to spread his wings all happen at the same time. So I think I have to agree with your second point. I think that's a great way to put it, is they were really, really outshining and outkicking their coverage last year, whereas this year it seems like they're coming back to probably what they really are on paper right now. And even with that being said, they're second place, 5 points down against Barcelona team that's only given up 6 goals all year. Which is beyond remarkable, if you ask me. So I would say that this wouldn't make me want to change managers, I think, or anything like that. I think it would just be a situation where you have to go, okay, we have to really look at replacing and getting some high salaried guys out of here. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Eden Hazard primarily. Modric is only signed through this season, and he's still pretty serviceable. So I think you just got to ride this one out. Hopefully you can get a trophy. Hopefully you can, still compete. You're still in Champions League, and Barcelona isn't. So there's still some things to play for. So I think it's definitely this is probably what they really are.
All right. Los, is this what Real Madrid really is, or is this a downturn in form, a regression? And if it is a regression, is it something that Ancelotti can fix?
Actually, the transfer window closes shortly and not many moves made. I'm going to say you're getting what you're getting right now. You're not going to see much more in the way of Real Madrid. They still have the firepower, the ability to go ahead and take on anyone, especially in La Liga. They can still make a move. It's only 5 points, but still, it's 5 points. And if Barcelona doesn't slow down, then Real Madrid is probably not going to overtake them. Now, as far as trophies go, like you said, they're still in the Champions League. They are also in the semifinal of the Copa del Rey against Barcelona. So they play the two leg for that particular semifinal. First one at Bernabeu, and then at Barcelona for the other. and that doesn't happen until March. So we still got another month before that even comes about. So I mean, trophies still available. They're still in the running for. I mean, they're not out of it for winning the La Liga title. They're in the running for Copa del Rey, and they're still in the Champions League. In fact, they're playing Liverpool next in the Champions League. Oh, which of course those games have always been, pretty interesting to watch over the last few years.
Yeah, I think you might want to play Liverpool right now.
Yeah, I was going to say
they did.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing too. Liverpool, there's a team also that was very dominant for a few seasons, and then they've taken a downturn. And I think one of the biggest reasons they took a downturn was the exit of Sadio Mane. That's one of the things I think, to me, on paper, that's what, and of course watching them play, that's the one thing that they're missing that they hadn't been missing in the previous years. But each team runs into this sort of thing. You're good for about your team at peak, you're looking 3 to 4 years and keeping the nucleus, and then you got to move guys in, you got to move other guys out, and it's a question of what chess pieces do you go ahead and move. What do you put here? Who do you take out? Who do you transfer? And we see this happen all the time, especially this time of year with transfer period ending. What is it, tomorrow? About 7 p.m. Eastern time, right? So
thereabouts.
Yeah, so that's it's winding down, this whole transfer period for this time, and then we'll talk more about what happens in the summer too, because there's another transfer period. So 2 times a year we get to hypothesize about who would be great player additions for all the different teams. But it boils down to this: you can't keep the same players and expect them to keep playing at the same peak level that they had been, because players get older, players get slower. It's like that whole Beatles from Revolution number 9 on the White Album. There's a little blurb. There's a whole bunch of sound effects and all thrown into a track. John Lennon's mind was amazing. Anyway, he threw all these sound effects in there, and one of them was a guy just narrating, and he says, everyone in the theater, as time went by, they get a little bit older and a little bit slower. That's exactly what you got.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what you got. Everybody's getting older and slower. And the only way you combat that is go ahead and bring in more youth, bring in the young guys, bring in the academy guys. That's what you got to do to try and liven things up.
Now, in the midst of all of this, as we're talking about an upcoming 2-legged El Clasico to get to the Copa del Rey finals, a 5-point race at the top of La Liga, Champions League rounds of 16 against Liverpool, home and away. In the middle of all that, they got to fly to the Middle East and compete in the Club World Cup. Yeah, I know, y'all. We didn't think that we were doing that this year, but actually, at the beginning of next month, starting on Wednesday, we're doing that whole entire Club World Cup thing.
Sure, I think Seattle. Isn't Seattle heading out there for that too? Yeah, Seattle Sounders.
Well,
they have a shot to play against Real Madrid.
I'm officially following that competition.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, your fixtures are your fixtures. You got to play them. When you play and you play well, you get invited to these tournaments. Not everybody gets to go. Only the people that do well and win some sort of tournament in their region of the world gets a chance to go ahead and do this. So
Seattle's going to be playing against Al Ahly or Auckland City.
Yeah. You know what the worst part about
Bring it.
There really is nothing good that can come of that for Real Madrid. I'm sorry. It's like it's this competition in the Middle East in the middle of this, where you just were last month.
More right, Mike. You couldn't be more correct.
And there is nothing positive that can come of this. Either you win it, which is what you were expected to do, or you don't, and then the inquest begins in earnest as to why couldn't Real Madrid with Vinicius Jr. and Karim Benzema and Toni Kroos and Luka Modric and Eder Militao and all of these guys win this tournament, even though right now they've got Eduardo Camavinga playing at left back, which is like the position that he least likes to play. There's nothing good that comes of that tournament for them, but it comes in the middle of this congested part of the season where they're already playing every 2 to 3 days. Los. They have to win it. They have to play. They have to play the bulk of their stars. What do you? Is this a survive, advance, win it because you have to? But can you please expend the least amount of effort possible type of thing for them?
Maybe. I mean, it depends on what lineup Ancelotti puts out there. When you see the first lineup for the first match, you'll realize how he's approaching this. May very well take the same approach that the English Premier League managers use when it comes to playing the EFL Cup or the FA Cup in the early rounds. So they go ahead and put a lot of the guys who are on the bench who don't get a sniff of playing. They give them the opportunity to go ahead and play and show them something to see, if you can stick with the club, or maybe we'll find a place for you in the transfer period, which is what happened to a couple of Spurs players. They found themselves in the transfer period and transferring out. But yeah, it all depends on player personnel, who's healthy, and what Ancelotti wants to try and achieve. Is he interested in getting this? Has he ever won this cup? I don't think he has. I don't think he's won this one.
I gotta believe that he has.
I'd have to look it up to know for sure.
I'm pretty sure. No, I know he won it with AC Milan.
Okay. All right. So
this one, no, AC Milan's never won this tournament. Not the club. Was he coaching Bayern Munich when they won in 13? No. Okay.
Maybe he wants
then
this.
I mean, he's got to add that to the badge list, right? He's got to add it.
I mean, he's won all kinds of stuff. Why not this one? So I mean, it remains to be seen.
Maybe it was because
I'm double checking right now.
Yeah, I know he won his Champions League with AC Milan and Real Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think he won another Champions League with Chelsea. And I'm pretty sure he wasn't the manager of Bayern Munich either time they won.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, he hasn't won this one yet. No, wait. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He won it with Real Madrid in 2014. So,
okay.
Yeah, he did win it. Okay.
Yeah, but this is 1-1. All right. Before we let you go, there is a small matter of your other team, Spurs, still alive in the FA Cup.
Right.
Who cares about Spurs being in the FA Cup? There's a potential for them to play Hollywood FC, also known as Wrexham, at the racecourse in the next round.
Well, it's possible. I'm going to tell you right now, I saw the last part of the Wrexham Sheffield United match over the weekend, and Wrexham had just been given a red card. Well, Sheffield had just got a red card. So Wrexham was playing with 11 versus 10. And I said, okay, there's a chance for these guys to do something. And they went ahead and they did something. They scored. The problem was, a few minutes later, Sheffield United went ahead and did something too. And they went ahead and scored. And so, and made it a tie 3-3, playing with 10 men, Sheffield United, showing how much gumption they have and how much drive they have to try and make sure they stay in the tournament. Which leads me to believe that the second leg of the replay of that particular match is not going to go in favor of Wrexham, although they've got nothing to lose. They've got everything to play for. They're not even, what are they, like 4 divisions down from Sheffield United?
I think so. Yeah.
They're
Conference North.
They're Conference
So,
North.
I mean,
Are they okay?
they are just, living the dream now. This is, can we dream it? Can we do it? Sort of thing. And it's kind of cool to see, Ryan Reynolds cheering on his team in the crowd, but that's also getting a little bit old. So, I mean, yeah, we understand he's a popular actor, and I love the Deadpool movies. My wife hated them, but I love the Deadpool movies. I thought they were a great comedy, and that's not what she wants in the superhero film. And I'm like, sorry, honey, this one's pretty good. I like this. But
hey, Wrexham's looking to go pro though. They're one league down from League Two.
Yeah.
They're top of the league. So if they're top of the league,
it's not even that they're just top of the league. They're tied with Notts County.
Yeah.
On points.
They may yet
but
get
they
their
have
chance.
They have a 13-point lead.
Yeah.
On Woking and Chesterfield, and then it's another. They're 21.
Yeah. Over Barnet.
Over Barnet in fifth. So I mean, they're not your average National League team.
Yeah.
Insofar as they have a lot of players who have dropped 1-2 leagues down to come and play for them because of this project.
Yeah.
They are not profitable because they just don't. But when your team sells, when you have a conference team, a non-pro team that can sell 25,000 kits,
yeah,
and sells out every game, and has a list long enough that they will probably sell out even after they expand the stadium from 10 to 15,000 with the new stand that's being built.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your average conference team. But again, you're right. When what you said, Los, what you saw in those last couple of minutes when Sheffield United went down to 10 and was playing against an 11-man Wrexham, it's cool to see Ryan Reynolds go through all the emotions. It's cool to see.
Oh yeah, because we all go through them with our teams. So
yeah,
we know exactly how he's feeling and what he feels in that moment. We've all been there. We know what that's like. But Wrexham has their hands full. I'll be honest. Having to play at Sheffield United, they're going to be ready to go. Sheffield United, they're not going to lay back. They want this just as bad as Wrexham does.
They're second in the championship, so we were talking about some 80 some odd place difference in between the two teams.
I wasn't sure how many places.
But I could see Sheffield going from
I'm retired from math, but I didn't do the math there.
I can see Sheffield though really wanting to stomp them out. Just like an old cigarette, just like put 4 on them and just go, hey, I know you guys are getting a lot of pub now, but stop it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be memorialized.
No.
In that documentary, nobody wants to be remembered as the team that keeps losing to Wrexham Welcome to Wrexham, because this is being recorded. They have said that it's being recorded. It is there. Phil Parkinson has admitted that it's being recorded for the second series of the documentary. Everybody knows that this is going on, that there are cameras, that whatever you do right now, come the summer, is going to be edited out in documentary form, and you're going to see it. Right? I don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, man.
Like,
I'm trying to be posterized, man. No way.
If I'm the coach of Sheffield United, I'm saying don't be the south end of a donkey that ends up being memorialized in this documentary with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney cheering against you.
It's
go out, put them in shows.
It's the 21st century version of the Dr. J Sports Illustrated poster where he slam dunks. That's what Wrexham is hoping will happen. I think Sheffield United is going to give them a really tough game, and I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, Stead, 4-0. I would, the 4 spot, just to go ahead and say, hey guys, you're good. You're not quite where you need to be yet. But
Mhm.
hey, good on you to make it this far. But Sheffield United is going to probably take it to them. Matter of fact, I don't know if our friend Sean is listening, but I think that's probably a pretty good wager.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
sure that I'm sure he'll be
4-0.
listening at some point. All right, Los, it was great to speak to you this week. Hey, enjoy Bruce Springsteen on Wednesday.
Yes,
the boss.
yeah. For those of you who are not in the know, a buddy of mine came up with he did some charity work over the weekend and got 2 tickets to see Springsteen. And he says, "Hey man, you want to go?" I'm like, "Let's go. Let's do this." So yeah, we're gonna sit in the suite, a corporate sponsor suite, and so it's not gonna cost me a thing to see the boss. It's gonna be awesome. Only downside is Clarence Clemens won't be there. Rest in peace. Would have been nice to see him still blowing the saxophone, but he's no longer with us.
Yeah,
the big man. So, but it should be fun. Rock on.
All right, you have a good one, and we'll catch up with you pretty soon. All right.
All right, take care, you guys. See you.
All right.
Now this is huge, Mike. What's coming up next is huge.
Yes, I have not
This is
talked to
huge.
I have not talked to this gentleman in forever. Making his way back from injured reserve, the long-awaited return.
Los, you have to say something now.
I had to come back and say, Cam, welcome back.
Cam, welcome back. It is good
Welcome
to
back,
see
Cam.
you looking
to see
hale
you,
and
buddy.
hearty.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We are super excited to have you back, Cam.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, brother. We hope you are doing all right. You're feeling better. We were all with you during your absence, and it's great to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Good to see you, Cam. I'm going to get out of your space now.
Sounds good, brother. Good
All
seeing
right.
you.
Good to see you. Take care.
All right, well, Cam, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, welcome back. You know, while you were gone, we tried to keep it up. We did. We spoke about Celtic. We kept up with the Scottish League as best as we could. But we learned in your absence there are certain things that are inevitable. The sun will rise in the east and set in the west. The seasons will change in every place except Maryland. And Celtic will continue to win. And that's how it goes. So, the funny thing is, since we've missed you, very little in terms of the top couple have changed in the Scottish Premier League. There have been some changes below. Aberdeen was flying high before the World Cup, not so much now. In fact, they let go their manager after this week. We have a very, 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 very interesting race at the bottom of the league, where we have 4 teams: Motherwell, Dundee United, Ross County, and Kilmarnock, all tied on 20 points.
Yep.
With St. Johnston sitting just 4 points ahead of them. So, where do you want to start, the top or the bottom?
Well, let's start at the top. Why not? Because I mean, it's the best place.
Celtic continue to do what Celtic does. There's a 2-0 win this weekend. They absolutely mollywop lower division competition in the Scottish Cup.
Yeah.
They are rolling. It looks like there may even be some additional transfers coming in. Who knew Aaron Moy? I had forgotten completely that he existed, but Aaron Moy is becoming a integral player to what Angie's doing. Man, when it comes to Scottish football, Postecoglou has the touch of gold.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's been able to work his magic in a new style of play that, and we've spoken about this before, so I'm not going to touch on it too much, but a style of play that the Scottish Premiership hasn't seen in a long time. this fast counter-attacking football, very fast play, fast foot movement. And then, as you say, he's bringing a lot of players that he's worked with in the past, Moy included, from his, time when he was at, he was a coach for Australia. So, he seems to have a good group of guys from over in that, Asia, Australia area that he's been pulling from that have really had a massive, massive impact on the club, Moy included. I'd seen Moy play in previous World Cups and that, and I knew him by name, but man, I would never kind of see him becoming a midfield linchpin at Celtic, and really helping to bind that kind of back four and, Kyogo up front, Maeda up front, Jota, things like that. So he's truly, truly been incredible. And again, I think it's another career that Celtic has been managed to kind of create resurgence with. Did it with Cameron Carter-Vickers, done it with Moy. Joe Hart's having a great time there right now. So, definitely props to Angie on what he's been doing there for sure.
Stud, I gotta admit, if I'm somebody who's been on the periphery of some of the smaller national teams or in Far East Asia, if I'm looking around for a place to go and play right now, Celtics out near the top of my list. As Cam was saying, like Carter Vickers went from out of the U.S. men's national team picture to starting games. Aaron Moy went from I forgot he was even still playing to a linchpin for Celtic. Daisy Maeda, Kyogo, even the new kid that they picked up from South Korea. Looks like he could be something. It's just this place where you can go right now and everything's coming up roses. And if you can get game time, you're going to end up looking really, really, really good.
Yeah, and Cam, you've pointed out that Celtics has a history of really going to Japan and getting players from there. But I think that because the world's getting smaller and you're seeing more and more players from that part of the world who are really able to compete basically anywhere, don't be surprised if, I can see Celtic guys standing at the airport in Osaka, because Osaka has a man-made island that's their airport. It's beautiful. At least it was 20 years ago when I landed there. It's beautiful. I could see a bunch of Celtic fans standing there with bats, keeping all the other clubs away, going, "Stay out of here. This is our spot. This is our place. Go somewhere else."
I mean, Angie's poached now 6 guys from Japan alone. I mean, like 6 really, really top guys in Japan for pennies compared to, the skill level they're showing. You're absolutely right. It's funny. Overnight, the Celtic, when we first started picking up players, the Celtic Instagram account grew by something like 3,000% within like a week or something that. Like the following was just
Japanese fans
amazing.
are loyal to their people who go abroad. Very loyal. They will follow you, and I guarantee Celtic jerseys are flying off the shelves in Japan now.
They had to open up a brand new marketing department apparently in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the corollary to this. Because they've got now a presence in Japan, they've also now got a presence in South Korea. You and I have talked on this show before about the fact that sometimes Celtic fails to capitalize on their fans outside of Glasgow, but to hear that they're opening up a marketing department over there, I don't know if you've heard anything about preseason plans, but would it be that they take a trip to the Far East to go over and play in Korea and Japan because they might be worth their while to collect some of that good old-fashioned tour money?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything so far. I know that I believe Celtic did go to Australia and play a friendly there with it was the likes of like Everton, Melbourne. I think it was Melbourne United or something like that. But I mean, personally, I think I would, if I was, the marketing department in Glasgow, I would definitely be looking to do some sort of, another Australian, Japan, South Korea tour. We have history with South Korea. in some of our players. Names are slipping my mind right now, but Japan, obviously, I mean, Nakamura,
Mora.
who was playing up until a few years ago, like, well into his 40s,
Mhm.
absolutely wild, still appears on TV. But I would definitely be, looking to capitalize in that part of the world. It's so undiscovered, I feel like, in terms of football, especially in terms of, the West over here, Europe and North America and things like that. It's just such an undiscovered footballing region. And, yet we see South Korea and Japan come up in the World Cup, pretty regularly, Australia, things like that. And it's just never capitalized on them. And I think now we're seeing that. And I'm glad that Celtic has been one of the teams to jump on that, because, as I say, the price that we're paying for this quality that we're getting is just absolutely ridiculous.
And the pro leagues out there, primarily in Korea and Japan, are good leagues. They're good leagues. They're, you're going to get competitive play week in and week out. But I think what's great about them, though, is, having gone to a couple of professional soccer games in Japan, the game day experience over there is fantastic. It's great. It's great. So yeah, Celtic's very wise to get established there. But and yes, it would be a missed opportunity if they don't play some summer games out there, because they will go and it's going to be rocking and it's going to be a lot of fun. So the J League is a great league. I watched it when it first started in '91. And I was living in Okinawa at the time. And I remember being excited to watch professional soccer. And there was, Japan and Brazil have a long relationship. There's a bunch of Brazilians shipped over there. A bunch of older Europeans went over there. And to say that MLS didn't follow that plan is really, really, it's obvious that's what occurred, but it needed to. But it's a great league. It really is. It's never going to be on par with Europe. It's just never. And I don't feel like it. And I don't feel like they're trying to. From my limited experience over there, they're happy with what they have. They have investors, and it's fun. And sorry, that part of the world's very difficult to get to. So you're just not going to get the same exposure, and that's okay. That's okay.
And they're coming over, and I think they're happy to get the opportunity.
Agreed.
And it's
100%.
A
lot of players in Germany as well.
And it works out well. Ange has an insight from his time managing over there that has enabled him to take advantage of it and create this pipeline that I think is going to benefit even after he goes.
Mm-hmm.
We were concerned last week when we were talking to Toffee Dave about the fact that he did mention Cam that he thought that Ange might be a good future manager for Everton. But we jumped in your absence and we defended Celtic's honor. We told him to keep his hands off.
Not what I want to hear right now with everything happening over there. Oh, no.
Well, clearly he's not going to take the job because Sean Dyche got it. I just didn't think it would be a smart move, because why would you go from a guaranteed Champions League spot to fighting relegation?
Exactly.
Now I could, and not having the ability to build the team that you need to in the amount of time that you would need to do it to ward off relegation. We know, based on his style of play that we've seen in the Scottish Premier League, how he wants to play. There's nobody on Everton right now who is quick enough to do what he wants to do, which is why Bielsa didn't take the job. He said the team's too slow.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's a classic situation that just goes to show that even for such a big money move to Everton, where you have such a bigger budget, that bigger budget still isn't going to buy you a place in the Champions League. You're still not going to get that exposure. You're still not going to get that opportunity to advance that far in Europe. You literally cannot buy your way in at that point.
Losing isn't fun either.
Right. So, I'm in agreement with you there. I don't. He's come out and said that prior to Dyche getting the job that he wasn't even considering it, which is kind of like an obvious thing. I don't know how many managers were even considering that job or would consider that job at this point in time, but I don't see him going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Now, I have said that before about certain coaches who shall not be named, but in this case,
we knew it when that job came up for this, he who shall not be named on this program right now. It was kind of obvious that he was going to make that leap. It made sense, for him for a little bit. Let's look at the bottom of the team, because at the bottom of the table, because that's where all the fun is right now. Motherwell, Dundee United, Ross County, and Kelly all tied on 20 points, separated on goal differential. 4 teams, 1 relegation place, 1 split coming up in not too much longer.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun 10 or so games as we get there.
Yeah, well, I will say I'm a little upset with Motherwell. I thought they were doing well at the beginning of the season. They were hanging up there in those kind of top 5. And they've just continued to kind of spiral downwards, just as you were saying. Aberdeen kind of, they've continued to spin in a downward spiral, to the point where they lost to, I think it was 9-0 this weekend to Hibs, which is just, I think that is, at least in my recent memory since I've been following Celtic, the largest loss.
6.
Was it 6?
6. Yeah, it was only 6.
Only 6.
It was only 6. Not
okay.
9, only 6.
Oh, okay. Well, still, that's a huge loss for Aberdeen. So, Motherwell I'm sad about. Killie also I'm a little sad about. Ross County and Dundee United I'm not very surprised about. Ross County just hasn't looked like much this season. They haven't had any reinvestment in the past couple of years. Same with Dundee United. They did start off hot. Tony Watt was up there in some of the top 3 goal scorers at the beginning of the season. He's just fallen apart. He's just not showing up for games anymore. He's just not. His heart isn't in it. So I'm not totally surprised by Dundee or Ross County, but Motherwell and Kilmarnock, I had a little higher hopes for them to end up more middle of the table.
Now, Stitch, you gotta love this. Yeah, we know Celtic are out 9 in front. Rangers, Celtic on 64 leading the league. 1 loss, 1 draw for them. Rangers 9 points back. Hearts 16 points behind Rangers. Then it gets fun. 12 points separate 4th and 12th.
Mm-hmm.
We know, as we have talked about before, this split is right around the corner. We're about 2 months from the split. I think it's 10 games. It's after 30. Is it the 34th match or the 32nd? 33rd.
Yeah.
So 10, 11 matches for some of these teams, right? You got 12 points that separate 4th and 12th, right? 4th in Scotland gets you a European spot. 12th gets you relegated.
Yep.
6th, you're in competition to go to Europe. 7th, you're fighting off relegation.
Yep.
There is 1 point in between St. Mirren in 6th and Aberdeen in 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And the 5th and 6th team, Hibs and St. Mirren, are tied on 30 points.
Yeah.
This middle of the table, if you want some fun to watch over the next couple of weeks to follow the ups and downs as they go on in the Scottish Premier League, because once that split happens, like we saw last year, you got to have a team that finishes 7th have more points than the team that qualifies for Europe in 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you stub your toe at the wrong time, man. You're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
These middle of the table teams have about 10 games to either keep it in shape or get it in shape. Aberdeen, they don't have a manager right now, but
what are they on their? Are they on their 14th manager this season?
Well, word on the street is, I heard from a little birdie that number 1 the number one person who they're scouting is no other than Neil Lennon to come and take over Aberdeen. So that would be very interesting to see him make yet another return to the. He just cannot escape. He cannot escape. He always is drawn back in somehow, some way or another. So,
hey, if Neil Lennon doesn't want the job, I'm pretty sure that you could get Frank Lampard back.
Yeah,
but he may actually take them down.
I was gonna say I don't know if Aberdeen wants him. So,
so. The other question I got for you as we get ready, we've been able to watch a lot more of the SPFL on Paramount Plus for those of us who have that and don't subscribe to Celtic TV to watch the games. Been able to watch a lot more of Celtic on CBS Sports Paramount Plus. That I don't know if you've been watching any of the games. I've been watching as many as I can. How much has having this sort of TV exposure over here in the United States and internationally meant for the Scottish teams in terms of revenue and exposure? I mean, we've been screaming for years that they needed to be seen more because this was a fantastic league to watch. You know, they're getting regular exposure now. It's only one game a week, so I guess the next follow-up question would be: is there any notion that they're going to expand that from one game a week to multiple games each week?
Yeah, I mean, I think to tackle the first element, the financial element, I mean, we currently have, it was just signed, I believe this year, the latest TV contract, which includes some of that Paramount Plus exposure. It's the most lucrative TV contract signed in Scottish football history. So, you know, obviously there is more interest being taken. We do see, as you mentioned, you know, games ending up on Paramount Plus, so we're getting that US exposure. We actually right now there's pretty intense rumors that Giacomakis is going to be coming over to Atlanta. Is Atlanta United or FC? Something like that?
Yeah, Atlanta United. And
Yeah.
they need him to replace Joseph Martinez.
Okay. So yeah, there's, you know, which I think kind of shows how much exposure some of our players are getting over here in the US now, whether that's due to kind of, you know, TV deals or just scouting networks that the US has in the UK is another thing. But it's not often that we see players from Celtic come over to the US. It's not super common. So, you know, I think there could be a case to be argued for biggest deal in TV in Scottish history, and you know, finally some players getting looked at in the US and coming over here. We'll see if that continues, but you know, I think the exposure that Paramount Plus is giving the league as a whole is just absolutely fantastic.
I actually had no idea they were on Paramount Plus, because I think every time I was able to catch the old firm, it was on TV or it was an old ESPN, something like that. So I actually just put it on my list. The best thing about it too is, for those of you who can't check it out, the SPFL magazine is a, you know, they got a weekly show. It's like that, those weekly shows for a league like SPFL are pivotal because they're going to gain interest in the league and not just Celtic and Rangers. So that's, I got another show to watch. This is great. I'm excited about this.
So Cam, we got one more thing that we got to deal with. That I'm not sure if you were aware of it, but it's back this weekend. It is back. The Six Nations returns.
Oh, it's this weekend. Wait, hold on. I haven't looked at it in a couple weeks. I forgot it was this weekend.
Yep. It's back.
It's back. And 11:45 on Saturday, Eastern Standard Time.
So man, is it on Peacock? Is it Peacock?
Yeah. 9:15 is Wales and Ireland, the first match, and then Saturday at 11:45 Eastern Time, Scotland travels to Twickenham to play England.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm jazzed up. I'm so glad you reminded me. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm setting alarms right now. This is great.
Cam, as we get ready for this, tell us what you think of Scotland in the Six Nations as we get ready for this 2-month odyssey that will be
It takes over the show too much. Just takes over the show.
It goes from football to rugby real quick.
It does.
Yes.
Oh, it just takes over.
No, I think Scotland's looking after the steam that Scotland developed last year, and I've seen there's been some switch ups in the team this year. Thankfully, Johnny Gray was omitted originally from the team, but he's back. Thank God, because I think he's a pivotal player. I'm also going to be looking to Hodgson to kind of shore things up a little bit. Again, we've got a shakeup of the team happening a little bit. Some newer players, younger players coming in with some of these older players like the Gray brothers. Hamish Watson's included in the team again. Another pivotal player. So, I'm hoping we have a good run of form this year. I'm excited for the team. I've been watching them training on Instagram continuously. They look in really good form. I think this first weekend of games is looking to, not just the Calcutta Cup, but just the games in general, are just looking to be just so damn exciting. I'm so ready for it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. And what's even more important in that stead is this is really some of the last test rugby that these teams are going to get in before the World Cup. So
Yeah.
this is an extremely pivotal Six Nations.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Cam, it was great to have you back. We'll get you back whenever you're ready. Cam. Great to have you back. Great to see you again. We'll keep following Celtic, and we'll doggone sure have to get you back so that we can talk more Six Nations rugby as this tournament goes on.
Perfect. Thank you, boys. Appreciate it. And go Birds.
Great to see
Go
you,
Birds. Great to see you. All right. We're going to go from Scotland to the FA Cup and welcome on our lower league and cup correspondent. Everything that nobody watches except one person. Chelsea Mike, how goes it? Fly, Eagles fly on the road to victory.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
I mean, Mike, I tell you all the time, I watch these things so you don't have to.
I did watch in between the Bundesliga this week and Celtic. I did watch some of that. I think I gotta say, I think that Wrexham Sheffield United game, which they bumped to the last game on Sunday. When I initially saw that, I thought that was a weird call, but given the amount of attention worldwide that's been paid to Wrexham, especially here in the United States, I can see why they did that. Unfortunately, Wrexham wasn't able to hold on to the lead. It wasn't an entertaining game. I'm not going to lie about that, but it's a draw. It goes into a replay at Bramall Lane. It started with Arsenal losing to Manchester City on Friday in what instead it felt like Mikel Arteta didn't care too much about that.
No. In fact, when I saw the starting lineup and I saw that Rob Holding was starting, I was like, okay, we're clearly not trying that hard to win this game. That was blatantly obvious. So I think that Mikel Arteta is smart to, if he's going to step aside from one cup that's sadly been the only form of happiness that Arsenal fans have had recently, winning 3 in the last 6 years. But they got a chance to win Europa League. You got a chance to win the league this year. If you're going to lose to City, I'd pick this one to lose.
Well, I mean, I always say that some of the worst matchups in any third, fourth, or early round cups are matchups of two Premier League sides.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I mean, they've got so many games going on, especially between the holiday season and the end of January. They have so many games going on that there has to be rotation and something has to give.
Right.
And yeah, no, it was clear that really neither team were, neither team were, I don't want to say in it to win it, but neither team were really putting the majority of their focus on winning this match. It was a very dull match.
Mhm.
A 1-0 win for City.
Yeah. And to be quite honest, I didn't know the game was even being played until about an hour before it started. I really had not been paying attention at all.
It was a little bit of an odd choice to put it on Friday night in the UK. I guess that featured it and started the round big. They did that in the third round too with Manchester United, but you know, it had all the feelings of Friday night football. Just,
but that's what they've been trying to do more recently, is spread the games out. Amongst other things, you were talking about the FA Cup starting on Friday night at 3, but then not only that, you had the game starting very early Saturday morning and going until 3 o'clock when Manchester United played Reading on Saturday. And they've made it a point to try and expand the windows for this to get as many games. I also agree with both of you. You especially, Mike, when you talk about, some of the more boring ones are when you get two Premier League teams playing each other because, they've got other competitions. But then I think the beauty of the Cup is when you have the lower league teams. I did not think that I was going to find it as entertaining as I did, but I did very much enjoy the Luton Town Grimsby Town game. I found that one to be and that equalizing goal that was scored like 30 seconds after Luton took the lead was just fantastic.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's the kind of thing. Luton Town pressing on the playoffs in the championship. Grimsby Town down in League Two. Yeah, I think when you're a bigger side in one of these cup competitions, you fight it out, you dig it in, you take the lead, and then you just kind of, you thought, all right, well, now we've got it. But they clearly didn't. Grimsby Town went right back down. Harry Clifton scoring immediately after Luton Town did. I always try to point out some of the lower league matchups. It was unfortunate though. In this round, six out of the 16 ties did go to a replay, but aside from that, there were really no lower league upsets. There's nothing really you could hang your hat on and be like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, we'll have to wait for some of the replays to go through, but unfortunately, within the FA Cup, when you expect FA Cup magic, right? The lower league side, the side that you've never heard of coming through, they kind of just didn't this time.
A lot of them got you don't have the serious lower league top. We talked about Wrexham. Wrexham, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, would Wrexham be the lowest remaining team in the competition right now, or is there somebody else who's actually even lower in the divisions than they are?
No, Wrexham are the only non-league side that are still participating in. There were two that forced playoffs in round 3, but they lost their playoffs.
But Wrexham are not your average non-league team. We've talked about this at other points in time. They've just got a wee bit more money and cachet to be able to do things than now.
It won't be non-league beyond this season. It looks like
I don't think they'll be non-league beyond this season. They would have, the draws haven't been favorable to them in terms of location. It's nice. They're unbeaten at the racecourse ground. They've built a really good home advantage. They're able to sell it out. They get fans from all over the place to come in, not just Wrexham locals, but you have people flying in from the United States and parts unknown to go to games there because of the welcome to Wrexham effect. But at the same time, I'm sure if you ask the bookkeepers if they would have preferred to play the first leg at Bramall Lane, or if they win this replay at Bramall Lane, if they would have preferred to play at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium where they're going to get 50% of the revenue, I'm pretty sure they would have said, like, hey, yeah, we'll take that money and give up the home field.
I'm pretty sure you're right. I will say this about Wrexham. I've been pretty harsh on this program and on my shorts about what they're trying to do. I've called them
a little bit, Mike.
a TV,
I listen to your shorts, brother. I listen.
a TV program come football club is what I've been calling them. I do have to say, though, they have been the most entertaining side out of all of them that have participated in the FA Cup since round 3. I think that the TV element is bringing people in to be Wrexham supporters who otherwise wouldn't even maybe like English football or Welsh football in their case. But they do, I will say this, that if we're talking about Wrexham in terms of a TV drama, I think they've gone far enough to make this a great season of Welcome to Wrexham. However, in their league, in the National League, stalking them is their nemesis, Notts County. Notts County, who have been in the league pretty recently, they're level on points, and if you want your drama to go bad, well, let me introduce you to the English playoff system for promotion.
That's how
because you don't want to do
it. What is the process for promotion from the National League to League 2?
So 2 teams go up.
Okay.
The team that wins the league goes up automatically. Then they have a 2-tier playoff system where the teams that come in second and third they get like a bye, essentially. It's almost like the NFL playoffs, actually, the old NFL playoffs, where teams 2 and 3 get a bye, and then teams 4 through 7 have a first round. And then the winners of those 2 play 2 and 3, and then the winners play at Wembley for promotion to the league.
Okay.
But getting back to the FA Cup, I mean, that match, the heartbreak was written all over Ryan Reynolds' face when you saw it, because they got I don't want to say harsh 7 minutes of added time, but it was pretty long, and they gave it up. They gave up the equalizer in the 5th minute after putting in their winning goal seemingly towards the end of regular time. It was a roller coaster of emotions, and honestly, it was one of the few games in this round that gave you that. And honestly, the FA Cup is usually way better about giving you that kind of feeling.
Well, we're number one, we're in a weird sort of situation because of the timing of the FA Cup, how it has to happen in the World Cup break. The other thing I will say, though, is what you saw was the difference in between the team that's second in the championship versus a team that's first in the conference, right? We're talking about 80 some, we're talking about over 40 places worth of difference in between the 2 of them. And the difference was clear. Sheffield United has more talent. They are a more talented club. I know that Wrexham has players who have played in the championship, who have played in League One. Phil Parkinson is famous for the Bradford runs of about in the last decade, where he took them on their runs and engineered some of the bigger cup upsets. But you're still dealing with League One, League Two, and below type players, and a League One, League Two type manager playing against a championship squad. And the best part about it is if they do win, and it would be great drama for Welcome to Wrexham if they get to host Spurs. I could imagine what that episode is going to look like when Harry Kane comes to the racecourse ground. That's going to be great. The last bit on Wrexham is, yes, you're right. It is a TV show football team or a TV show that has spun out a football team. The one thing that I will say, though, is a lot of times you see these things and they don't necessarily have a benefit. I feel very, very strongly that in this case, there has been, and there is statistical evidence to suggest that this has been a boon to the area. It has turned Wrexham in North Wales into a tourist destination. You know, they're talking about they have a waiting list. I was saying to Stead earlier, they have sold out jerseys. They have sold over 25,000 jerseys, the majority of which come to the United States. Phil Parkinson has talked about how many people from the United States have come over. The hotels are full. It's been a boon to tourism. Here was a town that really had nothing going on much beforehand. These guys took it over. I do think that they're genuine in their desire for the club to grow and be sort of something more than it is right now. I think the people who are locals, the locals who are supporters, understand that they are businessmen, that this is something that they are using to make money. But in that rare case where you have a set of business people come in, they've actually done some good. That guiding hand that Locke talked about that never or Adam Smith talked about that never actually seems to guide the right direction, has managed to lift up the entire economy of that area and provided them with a boon. Now, where this goes in the future remains to be seen, but at least right now, it's going in a very positive direction, and they seem to be taking this seriously. They're willing to sink 40 million pounds into it to rebuild that stadium and take out that decrepit cop end that needed to be replaced.
No, yeah, I mean, my cynicism stems from the fact that I feel like these two American actors, or one Canadian and one American actor, could get bored pretty easily. And yes, okay, they had their first season that they almost got up to the league. Now they have a second season where they do get up to a league, and then then it gets hard, right? The promotion gets hard, and I don't know how much more they're willing to sink into the team, but my cynicism comes from that they're going to get bored and just kind of leave them in the lurch. I do hope actually that they sort of grow into this role and become almost like an Elton John to Watford, where they're active and involved in the beginning and then become sort of figureheads and stick around for a long time. I do think that it is good for not only the town of Wrexham, but North Wales generally, that they're involved for now, because that all goes away if they pull out quickly. But for now, they're on a wild ride, and they've been the most entertaining team in the FA Cup. Forget about who their owners are. And honestly, though, Michael, you're a Manchester United fan. I'm a Chelsea fan. We know our owners are in it to make money. Who cares if we're winning, right? That's what matters.
I think, though, that I would rather have owners who are like them, where I can see Ryan Reynolds on the sideline go through the agony and experience the highs and lows, because I think they genuinely care about the sport as much as they care about the money that they're making. But like you said, it's a project we'll see, and the biggest fear is always that they're going to lose interest. All right, moving forward, we've got the replays coming up over the next couple of days. The First one is Blackburn Rovers and Birmingham tomorrow, but the rest of them will be contested on February 7th. Before we get to the very end of the month, into the round of 16. The biggest remaining sides left in the draw were Spurs, Man United, and Manchester City. The only other remaining Premier League teams, Southampton, West Ham, and Leicester City and Leeds and Brighton, right? Brighton, we should mention the fact that Brighton took out Liverpool. Like, at what point does Liverpool have to be happy that they don't have to play Brighton again this season?
Well, they've played 3 times and they've given up 8 goals to Brighton, and they've lost twice and drawn once. So I think, trust me, I've said for a long time that those trips to the South Coast, especially in the second half of the season, are just brutal. So yeah, no. Hey, I hate Brighton too. So Liverpoolians, you're allowed to join me in my hate.
Still, even though Brent
We'll
Love
have
isn't on the
something in
squad
common.
anymore, I'm still mad.
You know what though, and we talked about how this may not have been the this particular one may not have been the round that gave us all the great cup sets, but we still have a number of lower league sides left in the draw. And more so than that, we don't have a lot of, we only have City, United, and Spurs as far as the quote unquote big Premier League teams left in the draw. And if you look at the table, there's pretty sizable gap in between City and United and Spurs, going down to like West Ham and Leeds. Outside
Southampton, man, they just winning cups. And actually, Southampton are only 1-0 down against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, which is their matches tomorrow. And hey, I know they're going on the road. They have a tough schedule going from Southampton to Newcastle, and then they have to play back down in the South next week. But they're only 1-0 down. They're Southampton. They're in the cups. I will say traditionally Southampton flame out in the semis of cups, but they're going to get the winner of that replay of Luton or Grimsby. I want Grimsby to win. You know, Luton Town just above mid-table in the championship. The championship right now from like 3rd down to 12th is just packed. But let's get a little bit of cup magic in these replays. Come on, guys.
Well, the thing is, it may not be the cup magic that we think of, where you have the 5th division team beating a Premier League team. But when I look at this draw and the way that it's structured, even if everybody gets through the rounds of 16, it doesn't take much for you to draw City and United together in the next round. One of them is going out. One of them will go on to the semifinals, but one of them could go out, and all of a sudden you're down to looking like, hey, there are some teams in here that either A, haven't won anything in a while, or B, are going to be surprise teams. We always talk about how the FA Cup wants to have these lower league teams in there for because that's what they want, preserve the magic of the cup. But then you wonder when it actually comes to the broadcast, like, could you imagine a final that's like Southampton and Brighton?
Well, yeah, all right. Maybe at the end of the day, for the worldwide audience, for the prestige and TV viewership of the FA Cup, yeah, maybe you're right. But I will say this about the 5th round draw, right? I think, like I've mentioned, these early, so will be down to 16 teams when we get to the fifth round draw. It's kind of starting to get close, but Europe's going to start to come into play for some of the bigger teams. So there'll be some rotation and everything. I'm happy that right now, the only all Premier League matchup that we have is Man U versus West Ham. And we could get Fulham Leeds if Leeds beats Sunderland, which Sunderland are in unspeakably good form for, what their television program taught us about them. But I think
kicking themselves for not doing another season. They're kicking themselves. They have to be. They
should have done it this year. But
I'm probably wrong.
No, but I've heard that they actually.
You've heard me say that several times, and I just liked that series so much. I just wish they did another season. That's all.
I'm shocked, and I know they're kicking themselves because if they didn't do it during COVID, they should have done it the season after.
Mm-hmm.
When they didn't have
fans,
when they won promotion, just because they didn't have fans, and it would have been an added source of revenue. But what I have heard is that they actually are going to go back and do another series.
Yeah, I think I heard that too. Maybe you told me. It's possible that you told me.
And
yeah,
it's possible, and I think there's a chance that they may actually be filming right now to do that.
Well, I mean, they picked the right season because again, they're in the playoff picture in the championship. It's almost kind of like who isn't really in the championship. There's fewer teams who aren't than who are, but I think what's so great about the draws for the next round is that you're going to see the bigger teams throw out they're going to throw out kind of like Sheffield did. Sheffield, they didn't throw out their B team, but they kind of threw out their 1.5 team. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, oh man, we got to get our good guys out there. I think you're going to see a lot of that, which means there's going to be a lot of competitive matches, which is, I mean, all you can ask for really when you're watching a match of football. So I think the draw worked out favorably for that. I don't think it really worked out all that well for the ratings, but well, I'll be watching it, so you don't have to.
All right. Well, we're getting pretty close to being up against it. So before we get out of here and end it for the night, Mike, give us an update on. You talked about how competitive the championship playoffs were. Give us a real quick update on what's going on there and what we should be looking for in the lower leagues this weekend.
All right. Well, look, the championship right now is pretty much you've got Burnley and Sheffield are through essentially. Burnley is 17 points above the playoff line in first place, and Sheffield are 12. So I mean that's part of why Wrexham was so surprising is because Sheffield has looked so good. Mm-hmm. Burnley looks like they could beat, pretty much the bottom 5 or 6 of the Premier League. We talked about Burnley not really looking like they deserved to be demoted last year, but that's fate came as it did. But after that, Middlesbrough is in third right now. They've got 45 points. And you go all the way down to 11th and you have Preston with 40. So Sunderland are in there at 9 with 41. You got Millwall in there. You've got Luton Town. These are smaller clubs that, would be a shock for them to get into the Premier League, but they're in position right now. Norwich are sitting in 6th, but my beef with Norwich is that they're always trying to be the 21st best team. And they have been underperforming, especially they still have Timo Pukki. They've got Josh Sargent amongst the league leaders in goals, although he's fallen off a bit recently. But they're sitting in 6th, level on points with Luton and Millwall in 7th and 8th. So, they're really just hanging on and teetering. And like I said, the playoffs are just, there's you might win the playoffs, but there's not a lot of winning that goes on in the playoffs. 3 teams lose, and it's heartbreak. Northampton Town last year were promoted to League One, except for their nearest rival, won by 7-0 on the final day. They got promoted. Northampton did not win the playoffs. So, I don't really have a match that stands out this weekend in the lower leagues. There's not, I would say Blackburn, Watford, but I don't even know if it's on television. And you've also got Birmingham and West Brom. West Brom are a pretty good story. They were sitting down in the relegation zone, fired their manager. They've come back and had a good run of form, and now they're one of those teams that are above 40 points. So I will say, watch Huddersfield. Huddersfield was in the playoff final last year, and they're in the relegation zone right now. Talk about a fall from grace. And that's why, again, you go to the playoffs, go all in, ask Derby County, ask Huddersfield right now. You got to go up or you could go down.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we are up against it. It has been a fun, entertaining, informative evening. I want to thank Los for coming on and joining us early in the show to talk a little bit of La Liga. We got into some Spurs, talked a little bit of Wrexham with him. Of course, Chelsea Mike for coming on, giving us lower league and the FA Cup roundup, and especially, instead, I was so happy to see him, the return of Celtic Cam. Great to have him back.
Yeah,
telling us all about the goings on in the land of enchantment that is Scotland. So we'll be on the lookout next week. The Six Nations is coming up.
I'm so excited for that. I'm sorry. I might not watch soccer at all this weekend. I might fulfill my sports allotment time this weekend watching Six Nations. It's entirely possible.
Oh, and by the way, also tomorrow's deadline day, which, we like to do stuff.
Yes, yeah. We will talk a little bit later on, maybe about doing a deadline wrap-up show, but I'm pretty sure the show will be simple. Chelsea bought everybody. Nobody else bought anybody.
Should I just make a short about
Chelsea
that?
stole 5 players from Arsenal, Manchester United, and Tottenham.
Instead, we're giving you Jorginho.
That's right.
We're making you take
Jorginho. Take him.
So, gentlemen, it's been really fun. Did all right this week. We'll do better next. So for Chelsea Mike, Los, and Celtic Cam, and especially producer Stead, who keeps trains running on time, I'm Mike, and this has been the Too Many Guys Soccer Show.